Do you ever find yourself on the fence, not knowing if you're going to fully go with God or maybe just part way? I mean, it's scary to really put all your chips in one place. But maybe that's what God wants. Let's take a look at 1 Kings chapter 18. In 1 Kings chapter 18, it hadn't rained for 3.5 years. Elijah prayed, and it didn't rain. And now it was time for a showdown with Ahab, the king. And so he's been on the run, Elijah, and he finds Obadiah and says, Obadiah, you go tell Ahab that we're going to have a showdown. Obadiah is terrified. He's like, if I go back to the king saying I saw you, he says, look, it's going to happen today. Get 450 prophets, every prophet of Baal, on Mount Carmel and Ahab, and we're going to talk. So what happens? They get to Mount Carmel, and Elijah says, look, let's figure out how long, Israel, you're going to halter between two opinions. You got these 450 prophets of Baal over here, and you got me, the only prophet left. Well, that wasn't really true, and he knew that, but he says, I'm the only prophet left, because Obadiah had hidden 150 prophets. And so he says, Israel, how long are you going to halter between two opinions? If God is God, serve him. If Baal is God, serve him. And they didn't even answer him. No answer came back. It's kind of like a guy who's having an affair and says, I love my wife, but I also love my mistress. I just don't know what to do. They don't even answer him. They're so weak, they don't have the courage to defend the position of serving Baal or change it. And so he says, listen, go get two bowls. You can pick them. One bowl for Baal and one bowl for God. And we're going to see which God can answer by fire. You put your bowl on the altar, we'll put the other bowl on the other altar, and the God who answers by fire coming down from heaven wins. Well, this should be easy for Baal. He's the God of the sky, right? He's the God of lightning. Lightning can just come down and boom, the whole thing goes up in smoke. And so all morning long, the prophets of Baal are cutting themselves and calling out to Baal, Baal, hurry, come on, answer with fire, please. Now, you would think that's an easy request, right? It's dry. Hasn't rained in 3.5 years. But nothing. And so Elijah helps out and says, hey, maybe you should call out louder. Maybe he's going to the bathroom. Maybe he's kind of busy doing some stuff, and nothing. So finally the prophets of Baal say, okay, well, you try it. See how far your God gets. Now, God's on the hot seat, right? No. You know why he's not? This was his plan. He wasn't following a plan set by man. He was following God's request. And he knew he could trust God, Elijah. He'd been in a situation where he had to raise a little boy from the dead. He'd been in a situation where there was no oil, and he prayed and there became oil. There was no meal to make bread. He prayed. He knew he could trust God because he had committed to God. People who are on the fence, they don't know who they can trust. They certainly don't trust God. And so he says, go get 4 huge ephahs of water, big pots of water, and pour it on the sacrifice, and drench the wood, and drench the bowl, and drench the rocks all around it. So much water that they built a trench around the sacrifice to hold the water. Now, a couple problems. First, water is scarce. They're like, no, we can't spare any more water. But at the same time, doesn't that make it a little bit harder when you've got to burn up a sacrifice that's now wet and the wood's wet? Well, you know what it's like starting wet wood. You can't do it. And then he prays for less than a minute. Okay? It's not the length of your prayer, it's who you're praying to. He prays for less than a minute. And the fire of God falls down from heaven. Now, fire usually goes up, right? But this time it went down and burned up the sacrifice, burned up the wood, and burned up the rocks and the water, licked up the water. There's nothing left. The earth is scorched. And Elijah's like, did you see that? And the people are like, God is God. We've decided. We just made our decision. God is God. There's no Baal. And he says, okay, the prophets of Baal. We're going to kill them. He kills all of the prophets of Baal. Then he prays for rain. Nothing. He prays again. Nothing. He prays 7 times for rain. And then, over the sky, you can see a little cloud coming up over the water, the size of a man's hand. This is a small cloud. But when he sees that, he says, get ready. Get off the mountain. You need to hurry. There's going to be so much rain, you're not going to know what to do. And this small sign was the beginning of a huge, huge rainstorm. God wants your heart. He wants my heart. He wants us to commit. If you're on the fence in any part of your life, you can trust God. Commit to Him. How long will you halter between 2 opinions, the prophet says? And Israel's just like, no, commit to Him. Don't wait any longer in whatever area of your life is not fully committed to God.